Hello, this is Professor Bustili Booth. Welcome to our first wrap-up. This one will be on weeks 1 and 2, which will focus on topics covered during the first 2 weeks of the course. I will quickly go over concepts and bring more context where needed to deepen our understanding. For those of you who may be more interested in the topic, I will note the courses that might be of interest to you as you progress through the college system. I want you to please listen very carefully to this video. You might want to take notes as you go, as there will be questions asked about what was discussed here, which you will answer in the corresponding Canvas assignment. All right, so here are the topics that we will be covering. I will just cover some of them here now. We did go through an orientation to the class platforms, Canvas and Connect. So if you haven't seen that video, be sure that you do, because it will walk you through how not only to engage Canvas and register to Connect and find things there, but there might be helpful tips that will help you find, for example, where instructions are for the quiz passwords, that sort of thing. And then also we had a couple of discussions in week 1. One was on Let's Talk. That was really fun to read, especially because this class is an online course. It's it's difficult. It can be difficult to get to know people because we don't have that face-to-face interaction. But you answering those questions and those prompts, me engaging with you through my feedback, really tries to establish that community. And I really appreciate that you guys gave and of yourself and help the rest of our learning community get to know each other. All right, and then there were 2 Connect assignments. One was Learn Smart on Chapter 1, called Dynamics of Business and Economics. And again, Learn Smart is an adaptive learning technology that sort of highlights passages of the book, and then after a while asks you practice questions to assess your understanding, and to the degree to which you've mastered a particular concept, the technology adapts and then progresses forward with different kinds of questions. And the Learn Smart, again, is about earning points. You don't lose points there. You have multiple attempts if you'd like, and you basically gain as much points as you can up to the deadline. And another assignment there is called Interactive, and you see on the screen is IA, and this one is Chapter 1 again for Dynamics of Business and Economics. And that is comprised of case studies and drag and drop type of interactives, where in this particular case presented you some questions around supply and demand. There were some activities around the history about the American economy and economic systems to assess your understanding of the economic systems, which I'll go a little bit over in this video. And then also there was a case study on Walmart as to bring some of the business principles to light. We also had a secondary discussion on globalization, trade, and jobs. And we will be going over, a borderless world concept for Chapter 3, but I want to get started on this because I'd like you to start listening in on the news and written material that's around you, the literature around you, around these topics. It's very pertinent and relevant around in our country right now. This idea of globalization, trade, and how our jobs are affected by them. So, and then there's, we had in week 2 a discussion on why studying business. And so I'll sort of make sure all those things are wrapped up together not just wrapped up together, but, provide sort of an overview as to why we are actually studying business and why this course might be relevant to you. All right. And so let's start with a quick overview again of Chapter 1. So, from an instructional perspective, I like to have things sort of be sandwiched, or at least, the topics get introduced at different parts of the learning unit so that you have a chance to integrate it into your mind. So, for example, you have the Learn Smart, you have the interactives, you have your discussions. I also provide you PowerPoints if you haven't already noticed them there on Canvas, and perhaps supplemental materials. But then at the end, I also like to put a ribbon around it and kind of go over, the main concepts, so it helps with your retention. So in this case, let's go over some main concepts. So the goal of business is to earn a profit, and it's a simple calculation where you have sales, right, your revenues, and then you deduct all your costs, and that is called profit. And then costs in this case can include taxes, right? So businesses are not into losing money. Sometimes they do lose money, and then they gain money, earn profit. But on balance, what they're really trying to do is an upward momentum where they are earning as opposed to losing profit. So, and then they do this by offering products or services, tangible or intangible. And the way I think about that is that a tangible product is one where, if you put your arms around it and you dropped it and it landed on your foot, you would say, ow. Okay, so that's tangible. Intangible is not necessarily something you can put your arms around or drop, right? So software, in many cases, is intangible. There might be tangible features to an intangible product. So for example, the software, when it's downloaded, you can't pick it up and drop on your feet. But once upon a time, those did come, in CDs. No, they no longer do that for the most part. That was a tangible part of that product. So it is important to distinguish that. And an intangible product also is something like, your flight to Canada or California. You cannot really put your arms around the service called your flight. And it's, but there are tangible parts of the delivery of that service, like the plane itself, right? Even though you couldn't put your arms around a plane, theoretically speaking, it could still land on your foot, and that would make it the tangible aspect of the intangible service, which was the flight, say, to California. All right. And so profitable businesses pay taxes, and it's a good place to be. Nobody wants to pay taxes necessarily, but if you're paying taxes, it means you are making money. And in our system, what happens to those taxes is that they support social institutions and government. So that's a good thing. So the ability to profit is not a simple endeavor. It requires a lot of skills to plan, to organize, to lead and control business operations, which is really sort of the job of management. And you also need to have strategies around marketing, which is the creation, the communication, and also the capturing of value, which we will discuss in some detail when we get to the marketing portions of the book. And then, of course, you need financial resources to fund the operations. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And business operations will always cost money, and so you want to make sure that you have that, the businesses have that in hand. So the businesses operate within a competitive environment. That should not be too surprising, and that in order to be profitable, the business, whatever it is, product or service, intangible or otherwise, they really need to produce quality products. Those products are the ones that tend to survive, the competition. And in order to be profitable, businesses have to operate efficiently. That means to reduce waste. And waste is equated to costs. And we'll talk more about that when we get to like automation and why, we have more, there are efficiency innovations now whose goal really is to reduce waste. So, and then in our society, this role of being increasingly socially responsible and ethical plays even a bigger role given the internet and how, basically customers are looking at supporting businesses that align with their values. That didn't used to be the case because a lot of the values were not easily known, but now in the age of the internet, that can be known rather quickly and be spread even faster. All right. And so in the business world, there are always stakeholders, and these are people that have a stake in the success of the business. So stakeholders can be shareholders, people who own stock. If it's a it's a publicly traded company. So those are the companies that you would see in the stock market. It could be employees. They have a stake in the success of the business. Also, customers. Customers are interested in the success of businesses, and if you had bought a product from, Best Buy, and you had a problem with that product, you'd want to be able to have some reasonable expectation that your problem will be addressed by Best Buy, and so you have a stake in the success of that business. Otherwise, you could be stuck with a product that is no longer good, and then nobody to help you with it. So in business management, there are 4 roles of management. This is a very, very big topic and generally covered in a course called Management 283, Principles of Management, generally taught in the fall, although it can also be taught in other quarters. I teach it in the fall. And so if you're interested in learning more about those roles of management, around planning, organizing, leading teams, and to performance, and also controlling, which is really about compliance with the law, and also innovation and being able to move your organization through change. If you want to learn more about that, that's Management 283. What I put down here is Management 194, Principles of Leadership, which is really a significant and distinctly different role in all of management, and that is the idea of leading, and that's a lot more to do with strategy, vision, and inspiring people to achieve the goal. And for all these roles, really the purpose is the attainment of objectives and goals, and it's quite the skill set that one needs in order to be successful. All right, so marketing, a little bit of marketing. It is about the creation, the communication, and the capturing of value. And if you want to learn more about that, it's Management 282, Principles of Marketing. And those are typically taught around winter. And again, other quarters may be teaching that. I teach that in the winter time. So if you want to learn more about marketing, which is really exciting, I think it's a lot of fun. People think it's very creative. That might interest you. We'll cover a little bit of it as we move forward in the course. But as a subject matter, it is large, and so it requires its own course. And so in that, you will learn about the 4 Ps, the price, product, place, and promotion, which is, again, these are strategies used to create, communicate, capture value. And then also marketing has a lot to do with product management, and in this case, again, product can be tangible or intangible, and whether something is adopted or removed from the product mix, and also considerations about branding and positioning. When I think about branding, an easy one to sort of imagine are things like Coca-Cola as established brand. It is hugely successful. So is Apple. They position themselves as a particular kind of brand with a particular kind of narrative and with a particular kind of value sets, and that people buy. They don't just buy the software. They don't just drink the drink. I mean, the Coca-Cola, there's something else they're buying, and positioning and communicating that in the marketplace is quite the effort. And marketing, that is sort of the area of marketing. All right, so finance is another field. We don't necessarily have classes here that teach that, but if you're interested as you move forward into the 4-year universities, you will, or a baccalaureate degree, there are plenty of classes in finance that are really fascinating. People in finance get paid really well, but the idea is that it's about resources and managing these resources, and that's primarily the responsibility of the owner to make sure that there are enough resources there to operate the business, not only in a short term, but in a long-term basis. And owners particularly are interested in that because they have the most to lose. All right, so the economic foundations of business, really a topic that we will not be able to cover much in this class, but really is its own sort of subject matter, is the area of economics. It's really fascinating, and if you are interested in business, I highly recommend that you take Econ 101, which is a survey of economics, Econ 201, I believe that's microeconomics, and Econ 202, which is the study of macroeconomics, and they're both economics. It's just, big picture, little picture, and more than that. But and the study of economics is really how resources are distributed for the production of goods and services within a social system. And so an economic system can be different from, from one social system to another. So resources, when we talk about that, we're talking about natural resources, like trees, water, that sort of thing. Human labor, so that's physical. It could also be the mine, right? And capital, which is really, dollars in our case. Okay, and then so the three types of economic systems are, the book goes over communism, socialism, and capitalism. And they're not typically pure. I mean, theoretically, people will talk about them as if they're pure, but when they walk and talk on real land, they really are blended. So let's talk about sort of the ideal communism real quick. Karl Marx was attributed to this, and he basically envisioned a classless society. So, and where people own all of the nation's resources, right? And that where everyone contributes according to their ability, and that they receive benefits according to need. That's really sort of the central premise of communism. And that people, through government, own and operate all business and factors of production, and that is centrally planned. The reality is that no two communist economy exists today. The theory was supposed to be efficient and equitable, but the reality really has shown that the effects of it are low standards of living, there's shortages for resources, and there are high prices, a lot of corruption, and there's little freedom. It's a very, very, very controlled state. And so, and it's declining around the world, particularly in a very a trade-dependent and interconnected world. A true communist economy just doesn't play well there. All right. So socialism is where, and this is sort of the ideal notion of it, is that when government owns and operates basic industries. So the postal services, the telephone, utilities are examples of that. All right. But that individuals own most businesses. Really, most businesses. And that government will do most of the central planning for the production of basic goods and services, about what they are, how they're produced, how much they cost, and when. But the individuals and businesses provide the other goods and services that are based on demand. And so the citizens in this case are very dependent on government for many of the goods and services, like health, education, and the military. And so in the reality, the modern examples of socialistic societies are Sweden, India, and Israel. And the people are free to vote for officials, and they choose their own jobs, although many of them, our jobs are government-centric. And they have higher standards of living than other economic systems. And that, they taught to be more stable than other economic systems. And they pay considerably higher taxes, and have on occasion higher unemployment rates. That can happen, but there are few pure socialistic nations. And let's go on to capitalism. And in this case, individuals own and operate the majority of businesses, right? And so it is in the context of competition, supply, and demand. And they determine the goods and services, again, what, how, and when. And that there are really two types of capitalism. One is pure capitalism, and the other one is modified capitalism. And in the first case, it's really a free market system where there are no government intervention. And Adam Smith was the father of this idea, where he said the invisible hand of competition will sort of rule the day. And that the government intervenes. And so for number two, in this case, modified capitalism, government intervenes and regulates businesses to some extent. All right, and so the reality is that modern day examples are, of course, our country, the United States, Australia, and Canada. And we regulate business through laws, like antitrust laws. So, we don't have big companies sort of taking over everything, where the consumer doesn't have choice and, pay the price whatever the company says to pay. Yes, we are suspicious of those kinds of entities in our system. All right, and then we do also have regulation of the post office, utilities, and telecommunications. And let me go back here for a minute. And I know that this particular video here, it's about to reach its 20-minute mark. So this will be part one, and I will come back to do part two.